The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate you all joining us here on this Wednesday evening. So we are now in April, and April flowers will bring May showers. But right now, we are in the midst of a showering of different sporting events going on right now as well. We got the April play-in tournament. We got NFL draft rumors coming up. We got high-level fisticuffs. We got baseball underway. It's a little bit of a smorgasbord for everybody here today, and we are excited to get to talking about it today here as well. It is DJ, joined as always by my co-host Kelcey. And Kelcey, we actually got a surprisingly good amount of talk today. And you know what? For the first time in a while, we're going to go ahead and dangle into the rumor mills a little bit on top of it, as well as discussing what we think is going to happen.
Look, man, I got me licking my lips. I'm so excited. It's been a week off. Got a whole lot to talk about. I mean, it's just so exciting. It's like somebody had just, put Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner and Easter dinner all in one for me to talk about some of these fun rumors we have coming up and, some of the events that we have coming up as well with the NBA playoffs. Well, almost kicking off. I don't care what anybody says. The play-in tournament is not the playoffs, ladies and gentlemen. Stop it. Don't get it twisted.
It's awfully close, though. In some cases, it is the playoffs because you can win or you can go home. So it depending on how you look at it, either way, there's a lot of fun times going on as well, too. But we have plenty to talk about, and that's going to, let's not waste any time. Let's go and dive face first into it. That's going to take us into the first segment of the show, and that is, of course, known as the tip-off, brought to you by SeatGeek. Go and use code BellyUpSports for $20 off your first order there at SeatGeek as well, too. Go enjoy some of these fun sporting games that we've been talking about as well. So, Kelcey, we're going to go and jump into the first one, and you know what? Let's just kind of go right into the fun part. We're going to start talking a little bit of NFL offseason, the rumors, trade mills, that sort of thing going on as well, too. And you know what? The first one I want to stick with is probably the big one here is Odell Beckham Jr. He's got a team. He's heading to Baltimore for not one, not two, not three, but $15 million for sure, with a chance to get $18 million. And, I think it's about time Odell got signed, but this is not quite where I was anticipating, but I don't hate the fit overall.
If you told me he was going to Baltimore, I'd laugh at you. Honestly, I didn't think Baltimore of all places being the place where he lands. It's wild to me. I mean, you don't have a quarterback potentially, and yet you have OBJ. Correct me if I'm wrong. It feels weird, right? It feels like a weird move. Like they have something planned that the rest of us don't know about, and they're just like loading up. So I don't know what's going on.
Maybe they know Lamar's coming back. Maybe Lamar and Odell exchanged a few words. Who knows there, right? Like maybe there's a plan in place or something along those lines. Like I have to imagine there was some kind of reassurances or something like that. Like it just feels like it'd be weird if there wasn't.
There's got to be something. I mean, really, it's there's got to be something going on here. It's so strange. It really is. Like maybe you're trying to prove that you can bring receivers in to Baltimore. I really don't know what's going on. It is so confusing to see this move. And, and for the amount they paid for him, I mean, $15 million with a chance to make 18. Really for OBJ coming off of that ACL surgery, completely missed a whole season. Like, really, this is what we're doing. Okay. It's a surprise move. And I don't know how I feel about it fully.
Exactly. They need receiver help, and that's probably the best one on the market. And if him and Rashad Bateman are healthy and Devin Duvernay is your third option, and you do keep Lamar, which I have a weird feeling the longer this goes on, this almost feels eerily similar to Deebo Samuel last year, where it was basically felt like the bridge was burned, he was gone. And the next thing you know, he was still suiting up and not a whole lot changed. Maybe a little bit less Y back by like 3 or 4 snaps, but still not a whole lot changed. So maybe they find a way to keep him. We'll wait and see. But I kind of agree with you on that one. It's very interesting that they threw all the money at Odell when they still are in quarterback flux, to say the least. But maybe it was Lamar who brought him there. So I guess we could stick with that for now, and just to try and make sense.
Yeah, well, let's claim that for sure. Huh?
Like
that seems to be the smart move.
Something's got to make sense, right? Like something's got to add up here as well.
Man, it's the NFL. At this point in time, it's the NFL. Nothing makes sense.
Exactly. Speaking of things that don't exactly add up, though, how about Jeff Okudah on the move as well, too, heading now to Atlanta? That one was kind of surprising to me as well, because not so much that he got traded necessarily, because I could foresee him getting traded, but see him getting traded for basically nothing, a 5th-round pick when he was a 3rd overall pick 3 years ago now. Like, I know he's been injured 2, 3. Yeah, it's the same year as Justin Fields and those guys, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Yep.
Or
Yeah.
was it the year?
It's
Actually, the year right before. Sorry, the year right before that. He was Joe Burrow in squad, but
yeah. I mean, look, yeah. What?
Hmm.
This is his 4th NFL season, and you're getting rid of him for a 5th round pick? 5, like not 1st round pick, not 2nd round pick, not a 3rd round pick, not a 4th round pick. No, a 5th round pick. You know what kind of players get drafted in the 5th round? Guys that are fringe roster players. And you mean to tell me that the Lions think low enough of Jeff Okudah that he is considered an equivalent trade for a fringe roster player? I don't know how like that. Look, a lot of things have been going right for the Lions. They made a lot of good moves lately. This is not a good move. I don't care how bad he was last year. He showed flashes his rookie year and a little bit even in the sophomore year too, barring injury there. And it's just like
when he's healthy, he's been shaky, but he was starting to get. You saw like trajectory as well too. And I give him a pass for that first year because you have Matt Patricia as your coach, and as we've learned anything, he also is the one who said Darius Slade was trash, and we see how that worked out as well too. Anything Matt Patricia says, you take with a pound of salt and you get it away from you. So I think unless we were missing something in Jeff Okudah, it was surprising to see him go for a fifth round pick, not a 5th overall pick, a 5th round pick when you still had a couple years left for them. What this does tell me though is Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon, you are very high on Detroit's board right now. Like one of you two is probably getting ready to go to Detroit at this point.
I mean, they'll be lucky if they fall that far, or well, Detroit will be lucky if they fall that far. It seems like, but we'll get into that a little bit more later on. But yeah, no, it is. I will say it's like it just tells you where some of these guys are ranking on Detroit's board if they're willing to get rid of Jeff Okudah for nothing, really.
Exactly as well too. And you know what? I think Jeff Okudah too, and for his own credit, I think he's gonna have a little mini resurgence as well too. I think he was getting a little bit better. I think he was getting to his own. And now you got AJ Terrell on the other side of you. That makes everybody's job a whole lot easier when you got the top 7-ish corner on the other side of you as well. And if they Arnold Ebiketie, young defensive lineman, started to come on strong last year, Grady Jarrett, maybe they bring in somebody at pick number 8 since they've already said no to Lamar, so they're keeping that pick. They're not taking a quarterback here because they said no to Lamar. So they've went out of their way to say no to Lamar, so I presume they're going to go edge or defense there. We'll see.
The NFL, nothing makes sense anymore.
That's that's where we're here as well too. But either way, I think they could have something with that young defense coming to fruition as well. But one other trade that was rumored was Devin White asking for a trade from Tampa Bay as well too. And on that one, I'm going to kind of be in the same boat as I don't think he does get traded, honestly. And even if he does, I think people are going to be surprised what they're going to get in return. I don't think it's going to be a very high pick. I think you're looking at like a 3rd round pick, maybe a 4th round pick. Like I don't think you're going to get a whole lot in return if they do trade him. So I don't see why they would.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just re-signed Levante David to a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. You're going to want to keep Devin White there as long as possible if you're the Bucs, and so I don't see them ever getting rid of him. But if they do, yeah, I think you're exactly right. Talk about fringe players here. I mean, some of okay, so this trade comes up, right? Your first thought is, oh, well, let's go see what kind of cool trades I can make on some kind of trade simulator. And most of the trades that were considered even or acceptable are like friends Anthony Schwartz from the Browns plus a 3rd and 4th rounder. Like that's 3 3rd rounders or 2 3rd rounders and a 4th rounder. Like, I mean, that's considered an even trade for Devin White. Really? Oh, okay. If I'm any team, that's what I send him. Like, but if I'm the Buccaneers, I don't think I want to get rid of him. I think he's too valuable on the field to let go for something like that. Like he's just far too valuable.
Exactly. You've seen, I won't say a drop off in play, but he had since that playoff run where he looked like a top 5 linebacker in the game. It hasn't quite matched up to that since then. So you're not going to be able to trade him while the stock is high at the same time. Like the stock isn't as high, but the potential is still there. You're stuck in the no man's land. You get rid of him. He's an all pro. You keep him. Well, here's where you're at basically. And then he wants to
deal with that nagging leg injury last year. So that doesn't help as well. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. If I'm the Buccaneers, I play this one smart and I'm just going to be like, look, man, we'll hear you out for a trade, but like, it's got to be the right price. We're not just going to get rid of you.
Yeah, we got a 5th-year option for you coming up too. Like we're going to keep that if we can. So we're going to roll with this. We'll figure this out later, a la Roquan Smith situation as well. So someone will pay if we have to get rid of you. We'll do it later. We're not going to do it now while we still have leverage here. So
honestly, I think if I'm the Bucs, I might even let him walk. I might hold on to him until his contract expires. I don't want Devin White is a freak talent where you just don't really want to get rid of him if you can help it.
Exactly as well. Very few linebackers are running a 4.39 like he does as well too. And you know what? There's always a chance he can hit that run like he did in that playoff run when they went to the Super Bowl, where he was the best player on the field for a lot of those. Maybe that can be hits that a little more consistently. Good luck, everybody else. Good luck, everybody else at that point. So we talked about getting traded for draft picks, but that's also going to kind of lead us into it is April 12th right now is the time that we're recording this, which means we are right in the heart smack dab center in NFL draft rumor mills, where every other day there is something fun, wild, wacky, zany, goofy, and probably just downright ridiculous being released, from guys who should be number 1 overall picks missing the first round to guys who shouldn't be picked in the first round at all, somehow catapulting to the top 10, and a little bit of everything in between as we lead up to draft day. And frankly, everybody's just kind of bored at that point talking about the draft because they just wanted to get here. So we're going to kind of we're going to feel into that. We're going to throw a little kerosene on that fire and talk about some hot takes, potential options, some rumors, some things like that we think might come to fruition. And I'm going to go and kick us off on this one as well, because I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one. And we'll go and bounce back and forth some weird ideas as we get to as well. I don't think Houston's taking a QB at 2, especially if Bryce Young goes number 1. I think Bryce Young is the guy they're like, we will be willing to take it too. But I don't think they take CJ Stroud. I don't think they take Will Levis or Anthony Richardson at 2. I don't think they take Hendon Hooker at 2. I don't think they take any of the other. I don't think they'd take anyone at 2. I think at that point, they either A, consider looking to trade back, or B, I think they take whoever their best defensive player available is, whether that is Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, maybe Christian Gonzalez to pair with Derek Stingley and open up a no-fly zone, because D'Amico Ryans comes from San Francisco. What has San Francisco done the last 4 years? Win with 17 different quarterbacks. And I think so he knows what you can do there as well. And the one quarterback who beat you in the playoffs last year was a second-round pick. So necessarily being top 5 is no guarantee. At the same time, if you don't love any of these guys, you don't want to take them at 2 and potentially hamstring yourself, especially when you got all of Cleveland's picks for the next 48 months or whatever it is at this point. Yeah, so you have ammunition to trade around next year. And on top of that, too, I don't think they'll take CJ Stroud because there's that link of him having the same agent as Deshaun Watson. So there's always that very, very probably doesn't play a big deal, but you never know. Every little bit counts when it comes to a top 4 or 3 pick like this as well. And on top of that, you have 2 first-round picks in the top 12 now. Let's say you take Will Anderson at 2. My hot take is maybe they trade that pick number 12 and some other stuff back up to 5 or 6. And maybe they go grab Will Levis or Anthony Richardson or something like that as well. Because there's also been rumors of them talking to Arizona about trading back. So they've reached out to Arizona like, hey, we hear you're shopping the pick. What's going on? So I think a quarterback at 2 is, I want to say, I'm going to take the over on it not happening at this point. So I think it's like 51-49, where it felt like it was all but a guarantee. And Tanner McKee in the second round, Hendon Hooker, you got the second pick in the second round. Steelers have the first pick in the second round. They're, barring a real big falling out with Kenny Pickett, they're probably pretty set to give him at least one more year.
I think the Steelers are fine with Kenny Pickett, honestly.
Exactly. So I think there's a lot going on here, and I would not be surprised. I'll round out this hot take by saying I'll put a name to it. And by the way, tune into Mock Draft Mondays here for every Monday leading up to the NFL Draft, where I'll be putting together some wacky, zany mock drafts. Here's a little prelude to what's going to happen in that next one. Tyree Wilson's going to be the second pick. I think they're going to take Tyree Wilson, the second overall pick, and that's going to be the defender. That's going to be their defender 1 that they take, because Jalen Carter, while the best player, there's still some concerns. So hot take, Tyree Wilson will go number 2 in the NFL Draft.
Okay. So that's a double hot take right there in one. Let me unpack that a little bit.
Both of those pancakes.
Yeah, let's start with the not taking the quarterback at number 2. I think that's a valid point. I think that is something that is completely valid. There's a valid argument to be made that Will Anderson is that number 2 pick. Maybe before the questionable character got involved with Jalen Carter, that being a potential number 2 pick. But I do think like D'Amico Ryans, Alabama ties, SEC defense already kind of built into place, filling it with another SEC defender here seems a little more likely if they're going to go that route. And especially an SEC defender quality like Will Anderson. And I think if D'Amico Ryans is going to find a way to use Will Anderson to his proper, like if there's going to be a coach that finds a way to use Will Anderson to his proper abilities, it would be somebody like D'Amico Ryans. So I could see that being the case. And Davis Mills, again, we've talked about this, and I've said this before on the show. I don't think Davis Mills is a lost project yet. I do think he is still he can get you a bridge to another season if you want to take another season. Now, there are a few quarterbacks out there on the market still that don't require a draft pick and don't require a high draft pick to bring in. So there are potential players out there that you can bring in. And you don't have to draft a high number 1 overall batch pick, and you don't have to take that risk on a Will Levis or an Anthony Richardson type of the situation. So I do think that is a possibility. I do agree with you. I do think that's a strong take. I mean, I don't think it's a really, really hot take, but then again, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm weird and I don't think Houston is completely sold on taking the quarterback there. I think it just kind of fell into their lap and they're like, maybe. They've never said yes or no, and that's the thing. They've never also said yes or no to a defender either. They are equally high on both Will Anderson and taking a defender there, or on a quarterback and taking a quarterback there. So it's kind of a scary situation if you're behind Houston because you don't know what they're going to do. Now the Tyree Wilson part at number 2. That's a hot take.
Is it?
But I mean, we saw it last season, last draft year. Freakish defensive ends, edge rushers skyrocket in this process of the draft in between the combine and actual draft day. After their pro day, it's like some mystery where these guys just go back and look and they will nitpick that tape and find 3 instances of freakish athleticism. And they're like, that's our number 1 or number 2 overall pick in this case. Like, hold on. What about the guy that's proven it year in and year out, play after play? Maybe he's not as freakish of an athlete, but he's proven it against quality pro talent. Like, what about him? And that's always the interesting take. I don't know. I don't like the Tyree Wilson going number 2 take, but I do like the non-quarterback at number 2 take for Houston. And Jared, the non-quarterback rumor is weird for Houston. Not really. To me, it's not a weird one, really. I think that's the non-quarterback rumor is pretty fair, to be honest. I think you have Davis Mills, who I won't say you spent a high draft pick on, but you drafted. So, I mean, at the time Houston drafted him, he was a high draft pick for him. So, I mean, you're really high on him with the previous regime. I don't think he's bad. I think DeMeco Ryans has had worse quarterbacks for teams he's coached on and teams he's played on. So, I think he's okay with Davis Mills for now.
I will say, I want to know where the rumor came from. Because if it came from Houston, then I'm calling BS and I retract everything I said. They're taking a quarterback. They're just spitballing at this point to see if they can steal more draft picks and take like Anthony Richardson or something like that. Because maybe they like AR, but they know they can load up on picks.
I'm 100% taking credit for this rumor. Because I feel like I was the first one to say it, that I don't think they should take anything but a quarter. I don't think they should take a quarterback. I feel like I was the first one to say this back when they first, were like at the end of the regular season. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't take a quarterback. And so I'm going to take full credit. I don't care if that's actually the case or not, but I'm taking full credit, and nobody can prove me wrong because tapes.
Well, that's the case. Well, give me the plug you have to Houston really quick. I want some tickets then. But that's beside the point as well. I will.
I'll call Hector. I don't know if he can get us tickets to that game, but he can get us tickets to the Houston Dynamo. Shout out Hector Flores from Insert Name FC, if in case anybody's wondering who I'm talking about.
I'll say I would take Will Anderson personally, but I do know Tyree Wilson is very high on a lot of people's draft boards as well too, and I have him high on mine as well too. But I could see why they could go either one, but I think Tyree Wilson could be that one where he just kind of skyrockets a little bit. Maybe not Trayvon Walker, where he goes from like pick 30 to pick 1, but Tyree Wilson climbing from like maybe pick 7 or 8 to pick number 2, which makes a little bit more sense than last year. I'm still trying to figure out how he's.
And last year, I jokingly said Trayvon Walker could go number 1, and I said that in complete jest and did not mean it at all because I thought he was a freakish athlete. I thought he was a good quality player, first round talent. And then again, like I said, between the pro day and the actual draft day, something happens that these coaches find all this mystery tape on these guys that it's just like, what are you actually seeing? Because no offense to Trayvon Walker, but if as a number 1 pick, I think he's the failure so far. But as a first round pick in the 20 to 30 range, man, he had a great season last year. Great job, Trayvon Walker.
I will say for the edges in last year's class, he's arguably the second best edge off of last year, considering it was Aiden Hutchinson and kind of everybody else. Because Kayvon Thibodeau was all right. He wasn't
injured. When he wasn't injured, he was pretty good.
It wasn't too much different. Him and Trayvon Walker were pretty much 6 in one and half a dozen in the other. So it could have been worse. I mean, they could have completely whiffed, and we'll wait and see. They did somehow make the playoffs, so you know what? I guess somehow it worked out. But
yeah, no, I mean, all right, I'll give you that, but I don't know.
We can go on this all day, but you have a few hot rumors that you want to throw out there as well.
So I'm going to play around in that same region of the draft with you. Number 1 is Christian Gonzalez will be a top 3 pick in this NFL draft. If you guys don't know Christian Gonzalez, cornerback out of Oregon, The big question mark was was he going to be able to keep up speed wise? Well, he proved that he is fast. In that it is just the tapes that make him look slow. He plays fast. He's smooth with the hips.
Too lengthy. He looks slow because his strides are huge.
Exactly. I mean, the dude is a stud. It's an absolute wonderment that he can run as fast as he can. And you look at it now. You got Arizona at 3. You have number 2 sitting there with Houston. I don't see any reason that either one of these two teams could not just be like, you know what? We need a corner to go next to, in Houston's case, Derek Stingley, or in Arizona's case, we need a new number 1 corner.
Need everything on the defense.
Yeah, like seriously, take a pick here, and I do think this is one where Christian Gonzalez. I mean, again, we talk about freakish athletes, how they like to climb in this pro day to draft day stretch. Corners are notorious for doing this as well, and it's a situation where a freakish corner like this, and then you also have Witherspoon out of Syracuse, who I'm kind of gonna. Illinois, yeah, and
same color. They look the exact same.
Yeah, they have the same color jerseys, and the biggest difference is one's an S, one's an I. My bad. But yeah, no. As far as these two, I'm going to kind of bundle these up into the same kind of hot take. I'm going to say you're going to see 2 corners, Witherspoon and Gonzalez, taken within the first 6 picks in this draft. And I do think they're going to be the first 2 defensive players taken in this draft as well. So if we're going to add on to that one's going to be a pretty momentous take, I guess, which we'll feed into one of my other hot takes later on. But yeah, I just think I don't. Let's get your opinion on that. Christian Gonzalez in the top 3, and then 2 corners in the top 6.
Basically, be following last year, we saw Sauce and Stingley both go in the top 4, so I could very easily see them both going in the top 6, especially because corner is deep this year, but so is edge this year. And I think the teams up there, those are the 2 things they're looking at, like Seattle, Detroit, teams that are way too good to be in that position, but because of goofy quarterback trades, here they are. So they're 2 teams that they could look at it. Arizona needs everything, as we mentioned. Houston, they need a lot. So like all these teams could use a lot. And you could look at edge like, well, when you look at all the edge guys, there's obviously like those guys at the very top, but Lucas Van Ness is really, really good. He can go like top 5, top 8, or he could drop to like 25, just the way things slip around. Same with Nolan Smith, McDonald from Iowa State. There's a lot of really good edge players. Defensive tackle, Jalen Carter's kind of one of one, but there's questions, especially with that pro day where he was huffing and puffing a little bit. If you would take that pro day away, he's not getting out of the top 3. So we'll have to wait and see with that as well. But I could see easily with them just looking like, look, these 2 are the class of by themselves at corner. There's a lot of other really good ones, but these 2 are kind of up there by themselves, and they don't have I don't see as many question marks with them, I guess. Like, I'm not going to say they're perfect prospects. They're not Sauce Gardner necessarily, but they are very, very, very good. So I could see Arizona, kind of like you said, let's say they can't get out of pick 3 or nothing's worth it. They're like, well, Christian Gonzalez can go match up with Cooper Kupp and DK Metcalf in our division and deal with Deebo Samuel. Let's take that. Or Devin Witherspoon's going to tackle Christian McCaffrey one-on-one in the open field. Let's not overthink this. Let's take him right there. We don't have edge. We'll get a really good edge in round 2. So I think it's very likely. I will say top 3 is very likely. Both of them in top 6 is also very likely too. So it's a little spicy, but not. It's like paprika spicy, not like spicy. It's spicy for white people, basically, is what it is. So I like it. Though.
I am known to marginalize a white person's sense of taste. So I do tend to make fun of them for it constantly, including Jared. If he's still listening, I still don't believe that he eats as spicy food as he does.
But I will just have a quick add-on question to you before I jump into my second one. Though, I want to follow up is. Does that mean Will Anderson and Jalen Carter slip out of the top 6 then, or who do you have or do you have only like one quarterback going to the top 6? What do you see filling in some of those other spots?
So I mean, I can't give away the whole cookie here.
What you're saying is a couple of those names, maybe one of my mentions, going to slip out of the top 6.
Let's just say my next hot take has something to do with the exact question you're asking. So I'll wait to give that until after your hot take.
Okay, we'll go ahead and pivot off of that one, so that'll work as well too. But the one rumor I've seen a lot of is Anthony Richardson potentially going number 1 to Carolina. That Frank Reich was a big fan of him. I don't think that's going to happen, so that's not the random one I'm looking at.
I was like, hold on, guy. I don't want to like blast you today, but I mean, I will if I have to.
No, there's a lot of rumors about it. Like, there's a lot of talk.
Oh no, I know there's rumors. I just didn't think you were going to.
This is a linear story. We're working our way there. You don't blow up the Death Star before you first meet Ben Kenobi. We're working our way there. It would have saved a whole lot of my lifetime of watching those movies. Wow, don't insult Star Wars like that. Those were a joy to watch.
I have a lightsaber in my room. It's not. Never mind.
So do I. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, there will be no blasphemy.
Let's just say, from a storytelling aspect, it could have sped up the entire story.
Well, then it wouldn't be as fun. But either way, my point is there's a lot of rumors of that. What I'm going to say is where I'm transitioning is I think that is all generated buzz for people trying to move trade and get trade down a little bit. I do think Anthony Richardson's going to slip out of the top 5 is where I'm going with that. I think we're going to see some areas where there's some trade arounds and things like that because I think teams like Anthony Richardson, but they're scared to death to give up anything to go get him. I think that's what kind of worries. Same with Will Levis. I think they like him, kind of like Josh Allen in 2018. A lot of teams liked him. Only Seattle was really willing to try and trade up to go get him necessarily. And they unfortunately weren't able to do that, obviously. But no one wanted to really trade up to go chase him. So the Bills kind of waited till he popped there because there were those concerns like accuracy and some of the things like that. The potential is sky high, but that's a terrifying floor to fall down to. That's like the Cloud City floor, basically, to force another Star Wars pun in there. So I think they're going to look at that. And maybe a team such as Houston might take that defender, trade back, and then use pick number 12 to trade up with Seattle or something like that to go get Will Levis or Richardson at 5. Or maybe they slip a little bit, then the Raiders take him at 7. But I'm going to say Anthony Richardson slips out of the top 5. I think the only way that changes is if we do see quarterbacks go 1 and 2, or if somebody jumps the Colts and takes a QB at 3. Then maybe Indy will take Richardson at 4 or Will Levis at 4. But I'm going to say both. I'm going to say that Richardson slips out of the top 5. Not really anything that he's doing, just the way teams are, the way the rumor mill's been going. I feel like it's going to be like last year where there's talk of Malik Willis going number 2. And then suddenly he goes pick like 102 or something like that. So that's going to be mine is I'm going to say that those quarterbacks that everyone's enamored with, I'm not even going to say slip because you're still going top 10, at least one of them, but they're going to evade the top 5.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I have a hard time believing it though, just with all the hype around him this year. I do think this is a hotter of the hot takes. I'm not saying because it's not believable. It is believable, but it's a hotter take because there's been so much talk about it that it's just like him being in the top 5. Like I just don't think there's any way he doesn't end up in the top 5 unless the current teams in the top 5 trade out of the top 5. The exception to that being nope. Currently in the top 5. Every team in the top 5 currently out of the top 5. That would be the only way I can see him falling out of the top 5. Or 4 out of the 5 get out of the top 5 type of a situation. They trade back. I just don't think there's a way he falls out of the top 5. Too many teams are enamored with that possibility of him being the quote unquote next Cam Newton, blah, 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 whatever they want to make him out to be. First of all, side note to this, let kids be kids. Let these guys grow into their own players. Don't try to put them into a pigeonhole like Cam Newton. Nobody wants to go into that pigeonhole because that just means you can't throw the ball. And that's not what you want to see for a quarterback either. But yeah, I mean, I do think this is probably one of the hotter takes though, just because if he does fall out of the top 5, that's a huge gas. I mean, like I feel like somebody in the top 5 there really messed up their pick if that's the case.
I'm also saying like he probably goes pick 6 or 7 though. So let's not get. I just want to point that out there. I'm not saying he goes to. It's not like I'm saying he drops to 25. I'm just saying he might go 6, 7.
Yeah, like if he drops, but that's just it. If he drops to even 6, I mean, I'm trying to think of
Detroit's
a situation.
Detroit's
Detroit's about to get a haul back for that pick, and it's like they'll be doing whatever they want to, wherever they go. I think you get a haul back and trade back to 7, and then take him at 7. I mean, take your pick.
Well, the Raiders see him slip out of 5. They might be like, oh, wow, we can get Jimmy Garoppolo, the opposite of Jimmy Garoppolo for the heir apparent, sit behind him and learn for a bit. Or when Jimmy gets hurt in week 4, Josh McDaniels traded up for Tim Tebow. Watch him trade up for Anthony Richardson or even Will Levis.
Yeah. I just don't think there's a single way that Anthony Richardson ends up out of the top 5. But again, from the hot take standpoint, I do think that's a hotter of the hot takes. I'd give that a nice little.
During our NFL draft special, I will have this on standby if he does slip. Like, holy cow, it happened.
I mean, hey, by all means, I think that's a complete possibility. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a situation where he could fall out top 5. And now it's going to make the thing we've been waiting for me to say not even seem like it was that hot of a take anymore. All right.
Well, now I'm curious. So go right ahead. Let's take it over.
Jalen Carter falls out of the top 10 if he doesn't go to the Eagles at number 10. I think
there's a little bit of steam behind there. One there's like
that's his only saving grace.
Creole seasoning in there. Like you sniff too hard, you're coughing for a few minutes.
I think Jalen Carter is his saving grace is going to be the Eagles at 10. I think the Raiders. I know there's rumors of him visiting with the Raiders here at 7. And they have number 7, but I think they have too many different holes they need to fill, and one of them is not quarterback. In this case, I think there's too many different holes that need to be taken care of, and so Jalen Carter. I mean, I look at that, and if he doesn't go to the Eagles at 10, where I think could be a perfect fit situation because it's just like, well, we wouldn't have to pay anybody. We can get another rookie. And it just so happens to be that rookie was teammates with our other guy in Jordan Davis. Oh, and by the way, that other guy that are in our linebacking core, Nakobe Dean, yeah, we feel pretty good about this one. So, I mean, and that's, by the way, when the most successful season of Jalen Carter's career with those two next to him. So, yeah, I do think there's a possibility that he falls out of the top 10. And that's going to be my hot take is Jalen Carter falls out of the top 10 if he does not go to the Eagles at number 10.
Do you think someone trades up for him at 11 then with like Tennessee, or do you think maybe
I think he's going to be that guy that just sits there. I hope he doesn't go. Honestly, I hope he doesn't go to the green room because I think it's a situation like Aaron Rodgers type of a vibe where he could just keep falling and just like the camera's just going to be like, oh, there's Jalen Carter. Oh, there's Jalen Carter, and then we're going to have to hear the stories about him the whole time. Like I don't want to have that happen to a young kid. And there's nothing against Jalen Carter. I just think at the end of the day, the most vital position a team could fill is not a big defensive tackle. I think that's one that you can get away with having a lot of things for a lot higher and that are a lot higher value fill-ins than a big defensive tackle. I think he's great. I think he's going to has an opportunity to be a good NFL player. I just think that's his cap. I think Linval Joseph type cap, like nothing fantastically great, but a serviceable big defensive tackle in the middle of the field.
Oh, I am very curious to see if some of the things that happen in the offseason do affect him, or if teams are just like, nope, he was our number one guy beforehand. Because if he does slip, maybe it's a Laramie Tunsil slip where he ends up in the teens or something like that too. Like It's very, very possible. We saw that on draft day basically for Laramie Tunsil, who's now the highest paid tackle in the NFL. So
yeah, I mean, hey, look,
does not mean you're done either way, even if you slip a little now.
And here's the thing. Falling out of the top 10 isn't the worst thing to happen in the world to you as an NFL player because you fall, like I just talked about with Trayvon Walker. You don't have that pressure of being a top 10 guy. You don't have that extra addedness to it. And you still get a very handsome contract. You still get a very, very nice paycheck. And you still have a fifth-year option. So it's not like it's the end of the world.
For the teams, the players maybe don't like that quite as much, but you know what?
That's fair. That's fair.
But yeah, I know what you're saying as well. So it's very interesting to keep an eye on as well, too. It seemed like a consensus top 3 pick just a couple months ago. Now there's a little bit of fluctuation, just the way things have played out as well, too. And I still think the off the field stuff it was concerning, but I think that pro day is what's really going to kill because if we learn anything from the NFL, they'll tolerate a lot, especially we won't even go too much into it. There's a whole lot of situations where they'll tolerate a lot, but one of them probably isn't going to be when it affects on the field. And I think that the conditioning on that one, and basically, for lack of better terms, having to tap out during your pro day, I think that's what's going to be a little concerning, which it kind of makes sense why it might have been a little out of shape, a whole lot going on. But at the same time, it's a job interview that's supposed to be built for you to look like a freak of nature. Like, I can't think of any other first-round pick quality guy that's had a bad pro day. But really anybody ever that's had a bad pro day.
In 3, maybe 4 weeks since your combine visit, like, you just showed out at the combine 3 or 4 weeks ago and you're that out of shape in that time frame. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm a big guy. I don't think I lose that kind of shape in 3 to 4 weeks when I was still playing. That took a long time to lose that type of shape. Being
winded, like that's a little concerning. That is for sure. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him slip a little bit. If he does get outside the top 10, though, I think it's going to be like, whoa. And I'm going to be curious if someone that tries to trade up at like 11 to go chase him at that point. If someone maybe at the back end it gets a little bit greedy, like maybe Philly at 30 is like, well, we got picks. That would be fun. Then they go chase him at that point. They're like, we didn't take him at 10, but we'll take him at 14.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a value. And again, it's a situation where, like, you look at teams like Philly, they have multiple picks and they can do that. But, like, and we saw that with Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis probably should have been a top 10 pick last year. But because he's a big defensive tackle, it's not a high value pick. And when you're in the top 10, you're just like, got to get the most bang for my buck here. And defensive tackle isn't really it.
Unless you got like Aaron Donald to you, but that's a rare anomaly that you don't really want to bet on as well. That's a 1 of 1. You don't want to put all your eggs in that basket.
Exactly.
I was like, watch him end up in the Steelers now just because you say that. And you have him and TJ Watt and Cameron Hayward just to make things freakish. But
yeah, 3 people to punch people in the gut. That's okay.
2. That's fair. So for the last one, we'll go and round mine out as well, too. I'll go. This one's not quite as hot or spicy as some of the other ones. I'll keep this one a little more straightforward for us just so we can move on to some of the other topics. But last year, we saw 8 offensive linemen go in the first round, so much so that Cole Strange was a first-round pick. And he was probably around offensive lineman 8. It was the fact that he was in the first round is what shook people. He's taken in the right order, basically. Just the problem is everybody else went so damn high and fast. I'm going to say this year we see 7 offensive linemen in the first 32 picks. So I don't think it'll quite match last year's. I think we're going to see 5 tackles, and I'm going to say we see 3 interior offensive linemen go towards the back end. I think with the depth at corner and edge, I think those positions outside of the early ones could slip just a little bit. And I can see a lot of teams looking at those tackles like, I want Darnell Wright, I want Paris Johnson, I want Skoronski. I think they'll go down that list. So I'm going to say the hot take is we see 7 offensive linemen in the first round. Not quite the same as last year's 8, but I'm going to go with 7, including a few interior offensive guys.
Yes, please let this happen. Yes, let the fat guys eat. Let them get the first round contracts. I 100% am behind this. I support this hot take with all of my credentials in my waistband and everything else I could possibly throw at this. I'm out of word. I'm running out of analogies for how much I support this. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's not a complete impossibility. We talked about how deep edge is. Well, outside of the edge, and you got corner there. I mean, but then you look at tackle and guards. Like, man, there are some high quality tackles and guards, future NFL guys that you look at them, and maybe they're not going to be the superstar NFL guys. They're not going to be that dude, but they're going to be that dude that plays 10 years as a starting guard or tackle for your team. Like, I mean, that's maybe gets a Pro Bowl or two in there. Like, I don't think there's. I look at it and I think there's a lot of talent there, and I think. And again, we talk about getting the most bang for the buck. No better bang for your buck than getting offensive linemen to protect your quarterbacks. So,
especially a tackle where there's like 5 guys that are first round guys, and then there's a cliff. Then it kind of drops off a little bit. Where you get into guys where it's like, well, there's potential here. Maybe we can get something. But after like Anton Harrison, Wright, Pitt Johnson, those guys, it's like those clear first round guys, like first round caliber guys. Then after that, you get into Juwan Jones, who's, my goodness, his ceiling is so damn high, but that's because he's like 6'9" and he's a freak of nature. But at the same time, and then the interior offensive lineman kind of the same way. Like some of those guys towards the top are so freaky, but then there's a bit of a drop off and a little bit of a cliff too. And I think a lot of the interior guys are very versatile. So I think that'll propel a couple of them towards the back of that first round, like Cyrus O'Toole from Florida as well. I think the center from Wisconsin, Tippentop, I think his name eludes me. And my apologies to that guy. John Michael Schmitz, guys like that are so good and can play center or guard. So I'm sticking with it. The big guys are getting some love for the second year in a row.
I respect it. I like that. I'm okay with that. All right. So my last hot take, I'm gonna go ahead and get this one out of the way because this one might get me in trouble. Yeah, it's probably gonna get me in a lot of trouble here. Will Levis will be the 5th quarterback taken in this draft. Then DJ's out. So yeah, so it looks like Will Levis is the line. That's the line here. I think one of the big moves we're going to see.
Nail out of my coffee really quick.
Yeah, I think one of the big moves we're going to see is Lamar getting traded to one of these teams that does need a quarterback. So it's going to push that out, and then that's going to leave out Will Levis, who I think, as far as NFL teams in the NFL are looking at, I think they're looking at Hendon Hooker potentially sneaking themselves in, not just in the first round, but into that top 15 conversation. If Lamar goes to a team that needs a quarterback in the top 6, 7 teams there, that pushes Will Levis into the 20s, 30s, and beyond. And then that's the case for him being the fifth overall quarterback. I think Hendon Hooker goes before him. I also think Hendon Hooker has a potential to go before the 3rd overall, or go as the 3rd overall quarterback, but I'm not going to make that my hot take. I'm going to just say Will Levis as the 5th overall quarterback taken in this draft.
Interesting. So you think if Lamar does get traded, do you think Baltimore ends up getting up there to take a quarterback, or what do you think happens with Baltimore in that case?
Depends on where he goes. I think that depends on a lot of it. Whoever offers the best package for Baltimore, but I do think Baltimore does like Tyler Huntley for some reason. They've shown they can win games with him. It's not like he's the worst option out there, and
that's Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley.
Yeah, I mean, really, at the end of the day, he's a Pro Bowler. So that has a little bit of a bargaining chip there. And we talk about Davis Mills. I mean, look, if Davis Mills hit the open market, I think Baltimore would be like, all right, we'll take him. Zach Wilson potentially could go somewhere if depending on this Aaron Rodgers situation. Maybe Aaron Rodgers ends up in Baltimore. Who knows? Let's just get crazy with it, people. But no, I do think if Baltimore trades Lamar, I don't know if they'll trade up a lot to get to him because they are sitting in a position like they could take a Will Levis as the 5th overall quarterback or a Hendon Hooker as the 3rd or 4th overall quarterback, depending on how that first 5 shakes out. So I'm not going to say yes, but potentially.
Definitely something to keep eye on as well too. Well, this has been a first for us. Normally we don't kind of dive face first into the rumor mills or some potential takes like that, but it's definitely fun as well. And we got plenty more to come as it's the fun time NFL draft season where the more wacky and ridiculous you could think of, the more fun it gets. And speaking of which, tune in every Mondays as well too for Mock Draft Mondays, where we put together a fun first round mock draft of some of the wackiest things we could think of. Go ahead and check our YouTube page for the latest one as well. And keep an eye out for our annual NFL prospect big boards, which will be coming out before the draft as well too. So a lot of fun times coming up. Before the NFL draft is when we'll get them. That's our deadline. It'll be at least before the NFL draft. So definitely keep an eye out for those as well too. Keep it out on our socials for the posts on that. But that'll do it for our opening segment known as the tip off. That's now going to take us into Kelcey's second favorite part of every show. And that, of course, is the main event brought to you by Manscaped. Code HILO Sports. Get yourself 20% off at checkout. And we talked a lot about the NFL, but there's some good things going on in the basketball world right now as the play-in / almost quite playoffs, but not quite, are taking place right now as well too. As we got the 2 7 seeds locked in right now, as we got Atlanta taking the 7 seed. They get awarded with Boston, and the Lakers, they get to take on the Memphis Grizzlies. So very interesting. Very interesting there as well too. And if I'm the Lakers and the Grizzlies, I think that's an underratedly good matchup, especially when LeBron and AD are clicking, kind of like they did in the second half against Minnesota. And Memphis, I'm still curious about them. Like they're obviously the number 2 seed, but they've kind of, I don't know. They feel like they're ripe for an upset, I guess, if that makes sense as well too. Like it feels like when you have Anthony Davis and LeBron walking there, that could get real close, real quick.
They're about as consistent as Ja Morant is when he talks about being hood or not. Is he? Is he not? We'll never know. I don't know. The Grizzlies are a confusing situation. They're honestly almost as confusing as the Lakers with AD and LeBron. I just don't know. I don't know how well LeBron and AD can actually play together consistently through a whole 7-game series. That's going to be the big question mark. They were able to do it in the bubble, but the bubble was weird.
And 3 years ago.
Yeah, and they had shooters then. Who's their best shooter right now? Austin Reeves and Dennis Schroeder?
Yeah, D'Angelo Russell sometimes, not including yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
Minus yesterday. Yesterday was terrible, but
yeah, Rui Hachimura occasionally. By the way, underrated.
I guess it's definitely better than they were pre-trade deadline. That's for sure.
But there are some questions. I will say if there's a 7-2 matchup that I like the 7 seed in, that's the one. I don't like it in the other side with the Celtics. I'm sorry. Good luck. We wish you well, but it's not going to happen probably.
Celtics most likely in 4, maybe a gentleman's 5 to be polite, but that one, good luck, Atlanta. Best of luck to you. That's a tough season.
Yeah. And especially with the way they play offense, there's too many opportunities for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to pickpocket Trey and take it the other way. It's by the way, that was the start of a song. If anybody was wondering, there you go. You're welcome. I will take royalties here. There will be an email at the end of this. You can send all royalties to. Seriously, I think Celtics have that one in the bag. On the flip side, I think Lakers over Lakers over the Grizzlies, just because I don't trust the Grizzlies at all.
And with Steven Adams banged up as well too and not playing, I think that makes it. There's no reason Anthony Davis shouldn't average 24.
Yeah. Anthony Davis not playing center is going to be the best thing that's ever happened for Anthony Davis since Steven Adams isn't going to be in. Like it's like, oh, I get their backup power forward, sweet. Kenny Lofton Jr., come on out, kid.
And D'Lo had a miserable game against Minnesota. I think he had 4 points and 8 assists. The 8 assists is great, but the 4 points and the 1 of 10 shooting or whatever was not going to fly. So I don't think he's going to do that again on top of it. So I feel pretty comfortable with that one for an upset as well too. Looking now at the 8th seed as well too. We got a couple of matchups coming in to try and find the 8th seed. From the East, I'm going to say I think Miami's going to become the 8th seed. I think they're going to get it over when they play the winner of Chicago and Toronto.
Which right now Toronto is smacking. It's only a 12-point game, but still, it looks like a slacking in the third quarter.
I will say, as bad as Miami looked, I do think in this true do or die situation, I think we'll see quote unquote playoff Jimmy actually show up and they'll win. They're not going to win in a series. They're not going very far. They're old. They can't score the ball. Their defense, when it's locked in, is great, but it's shaky. But I think they'll find a way to get in nonetheless, especially over the Raptors and the Bulls, which it sounds like it'll be the Raptors. Then in the West, does it really matter too much? I think Minnesota. I like Anthony Edwards, but that was a very rough game for him against the Lakers. He was 1 of 11 at one point. He finished with 11 points. He's gonna have to bounce back.
Going on. Rudy Gobert not being there really hurt.
It's weird to say too. It's like that team's just weirdly put together, and I think you kind of see it there as well. So for the West, we'll see how that one plays out. But what I thought was interesting though is when we look at the West as well. Honestly, I think the best matchup, the teams that everyone's most scared of, get to play each other in round one. When you see the Clippers take on the Suns right away as well, especially with Paul George being out, I feel like that's kind of everybody benefited from that because nobody has to play one of them in the first round, which I don't think anybody wanted to deal with them in round one.
No, not at all. And as far as the playing games, let me just go ahead and I'll go ahead and say I do think the Raptors do win tonight, and I do think they pull it out against the Heat as well. I just think something about the Raptors, the way they've been playing the last stretch, and after watching the Heat try to play offense against the Hawks, I don't know what that was. That was wow. I don't care how creative you can get defensively when you can't score a ball and when on 5 wide open shots in a row. I don't know what you're supposed to do in there.
When in 2023, Kyle Lowry is your best scoring option, you got some concerns.
Yeah, like so, there's a problem there for the Heat. They did put up 105, but it's more of a mercy 105.
Pity.
Yeah, and then on the flip side, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander here is going to be the absolute wrecking ball for the Thunder. They're gonna win. They're gonna win in this matchup against the Thunder tonight, and then potentially even be able to pull that out against the Timberwolves. Just because I don't trust the Wolves. I've said this before. I don't think Anthony Edwards has the opportunity to be the number one guy that everybody wants him to be in Minnesota. I think he had to go somewhere else to be that superstar in the making that everybody wants to make him out to be. Whereas if he stays there, he's going to be a good player. Nothing wrong with that. Just, at the level of what people want to make him out to be, no. But, if he's going to have to go somewhere where, no offense to Minnesota, but you got too many big guys and none of them know how to be a big guy. You got a tree. You have a big guy that wants to play as a 3-point shooter. And you have another big guy who I don't even think he knows what offense means. I don't even think you can say the word in French on how to say offense. So, yeah, it's, pretty miserable for the Wolves. So I think Anthony Edwards just needs to get out of there if he's going to have any chance of being a superstar. So, yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, budding superstar, talking about it. He has Josh Giddey there beside him and everybody else on that Thunder team. It looks pretty good. And so I'm going to take that Thunder team to get that 8 seed here in the West. But yeah, and looking at the matchups in the first round, I mean, the big one to me, I look at the Knicks Cavaliers in the East and I look at the Warriors Kings in the West as the two that might surprise some people because the Warriors obviously majorly favored over the Kings. Everybody's saying the Kings that first round out, but they won the season series over the Warriors. Let's not forget here. And then on the flip side, the Knicks, kind of a pesky team that really can bear down on you defensively, going against that young upstart Cavs team who's almost too naive to know what's good for them. So, we've seen in the past naive teams like that can make a great run, and but pesky defenses, man, those teams like to advance in the playoffs. So it's going to be that one to me. I think the Knicks Cavs is going to be a tough matchup. I think the Kings Warriors one is going to be a surprise for a lot of people, especially seeing the way that the Warriors were shooting down the stretch here. Wasn't all sunshine and daisies if anybody's been paying attention. It's been some rough nights out there.
I will say, too, the Cavaliers will have the best player on the court in Donovan Mitchell. After that, you could kind of put everybody into a vacuum at that point as well, too. I think it gets very interesting when you go like Jalen Brunson, Darius Garland, equivalent. And obviously, maybe Garland.
I'd give Garland the credit. I think the top 2 players will be.
That's fair, but I'm saying
Cavaliers. But I think the next 3. I think the next 3 are going to be Knicks players, though, after that.
I'll reword that. Donovan Mitchell, clearly the best player in the series. After everything that, I think there's some similarities down the board, too. There's not a huge gap with Garland and Brunson, not a huge gap with Mobley and Randall, kind of when you go down the line like that, which I think it'll be a very interesting series how they match up as well, too. That'll be very fun to watch. I'm going to say the Cavs in 6. I think they should win, but like you said, naivety can be great, or naivety with that kind of defense could get you in trouble. So that will definitely be fun to watch. As far as the Kings and the Warriors go, I'm going to say the Kings win that series. I'm just going to say it right now. I think they take it in 6. The Warriors, they've lost 30 road games this year. And I know Sacramento's a hop, step, and a skip away, so that doesn't really count necessarily. So it's
until you step foot in that arena.
Exactly. And I think and Sacramento's offense is absolutely ridiculous. And it's kind of like we talked about, defense could be pesky. So can offense when you put up the highest offensive rating of all time. All right, Steph, Clay, you want De'Aaron Fox in the pick and roll? This is not 2015. They're not going to move. They're not the spring chickens they once were. They're not moving like that. Jordan Poole, you want De'Aaron Fox in the pick and roll? You guys want to deal with Sabonis at the block? I mean, Draymond, sure, but he'll pass it right over you. He'll pop it right, shoot it right over.
Yeah.
Buddy, that's a lot going on that
Oh
team.
no, Buddy's an indie. It's
Not
Kevin
Buddy,
Werther.
sorry.
Kevin
sorry.
Werther.
Wrong.
Which by the way, if you're gonna put Steph on Kevin Werther, he's gonna shoot right over the top of him. 6'6" guy guard, or 6'7", 6'8" guard, something like that. Shoots lights out.
There's so many weapons in Sacramento, and they play so effectively, so efficiently. Like that's a tough matchup for the Warriors, who have not quite been the Warriors this year. Like they've been fantastic. They're still dangerous. They get by the Kings. I don't want to play them in round 2 either. But that's for a round 1 matchup. I'm going to say the Kings take this one. That's going to be my bold prediction of the West. So I'm going to say the Kings. The 3 seed pulls the upset over the 6 seed. That's how ridiculous.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right to say it out loud, but it's really what it ends up being. I will also say this about that, because I'm not going to give you a winner to this series. I think everybody who's been watching this show knows who I'm rooting for. I think, yeah. I mean,
for the newbie, whoever it is.
Yeah, if you're a newbie, I'm a diehard Sacramento Kings fan. But I think everybody's about to learn how raucous Sacramento can get during the playoffs, because people forgot. Most people watching NBA basketball today have never seen the Kings in the playoffs. How freakiest is that? So they have never seen what Arco Arena used to be like. They had never seen how raucous and annoying and loud and obnoxious those Kings fans could be. And I mean that in the best ways. Like you thought San Francisco during the Golden State heyday was great. Nah, man. The Golden One is going to be, it's going to be a golden place for Kings fans to celebrate. These fans have been waiting for literal lifetimes for this moment, and it's going to be exciting to watch. So I can't wait for this one. But yeah, I'm obviously rooting for the Kings. I'm just not going to give a game, but yeah, just at this point in time, just advance, just smile in advance.
I will say too, even though he's not supposed to be playing in the series, you know who is on the Kings? It's that Steph's old good friend Matthew Dellavedova. I know he's not playing in the series because he's injured, but there's a Delly on the sideline. Maybe just saying. You talk to people in Cleveland, that's the Steph stopper for all.
Everybody needs a hero off of this Delly line.
Exactly. So you know what? It's something to keep an eye. It's something to keep an eye on. So that's a fun series to watch as well. So I look forward to getting this first one go. But before we wrap up the NBA basketball, we're just gonna roll past that one. We're gonna keep on chugging along. NBA regular season awards. Now we talked about them throughout the year as well, and we're not gonna go over every single award. We'll just go over a few of the main ones, what we're thinking as well too. And we'll start at the MVP, because this one was supposed to be a wash like three months ago. It was a runaway. Now there's 3 guys at the top, and I feel like you can make a case for all 3 of them. So, you know what? We'll even go 1 through 3, 1 through 5, however you want to rank it. Go and give me your top 3 or top 5.
I'm gonna go from 3 to 1. I'm only gonna do 3 because I feel like it's these 3 guys are bust. I'm gonna go number 3, Jokic. As much as I feel like he had done enough to earn an MVP candidacy, he stayed the same. He stayed elite level, but he stayed elite level on a flat line through the end of the season there. Maybe a small dip, if anything, but he still stayed elite level. Whereas the 2 guys in front of him took a elite step up above his level and continued to accelerate. So for number 2, I'm gonna go with. Yeah, I'm gonna go Joel Embiid at number 2. I think Embiid has done a lot here, and the look on your face is exactly why I say this. He's been. You're going to be cutting hairs here. Is how much does the potential exhaustion of the player I'm about to say for number 1 come into play for voters, versus how much do they want to kind of make up for last year's mistake of not giving it to Embiid as well. But I think here I think Embiid, for me personally, I think he's at number 2 only because of the way it broke down. And I mean, gosh, I don't want to but yeah, I mean, we're talking about the 1 seed versus the 3 seed in the East. So give me the best team in the NBA and they have the MVP, and that's going to be Giannis. I think Giannis wins it for me. So that's where I'm going with it. I'm going to go Giannis at number 1, Joel Embiid number 2, and Nikola Jokic as 3rd in the MVP race.
And it's as close as it's a close one as well too.
I mean, you can honestly count on chicken scratch. I don't know, whatever the smallest possible measurement, microns or whatever. It's about that far apart.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to go with mine is I have the same three guys. I'm not going to get too cute. I think there are some other guys that could be in the conversation for 4 or
Yeah.
5, but not 1, 2, 3. So we're going to stick with the same three. So I'm going to go 3-1 as well. Number 3, we're just going to go opposite of this one. I'm going to go put Giannis at 3, in no small part just because he played the fewest games too. He played 63. Joel played 66. Jokic played 69. Kind of fun how symmetrical that went, 3-6-9. But that's not. And honestly, they had a winning record even without him. So I'm going to say, granted, we're splitting hairs. I'm cutting facial hair here. Next, we're going to go with Jokic at number 2. Freakish stat line as far as efficiency goes. Like all the nerd analytics stats everybody could want. 24, 10, and 10 or whatever it was. He played 69 games more than the other two. They were the number 1 seed in the West. They had a losing record actually without him. I think it was like 5-8 or something like that. So
yeah, I mean, without him, the Nuggets are nothing.
Exactly. And I think part of it is it feels so. I'm going to have him at number 2. I won't spend too much time on that one because there's plenty of superlatives you can say. I'm not going to try and put in a bunch of negatives. I'm going to focus more on number 1, Joel Embiid, 33.5 points per game. The leading scorer in the NBA points per game was the highest by a center since Wilt.
That qualifies. By the way.
Yeah, but yeah, the highest by points per game by a center since Wilt Chamberlain. Like that is some freakish categories. He absolutely insane. And he adds on the defensive side, 3rd seed in the East. Ridiculous efficiency, ridiculous. Like everything he does is everything you can go down the stat line is fantastic. The assists, obviously, Jokic has him with, and some of those freakish efficiencies. Shooting nearly 60% from the field, step back, 3-point game. He does just about everything right. So I'm splitting hairs. I'm not going to try and yank down the others on this one and say like, oh, he doesn't play defense. Well, he's a turnstile. Well, he's injured. Well, he can't shoot. I won't go too far into that. I'll say everything that Joel Embiid does there. He just has such a long list of, oh my God, what can't he do sort of thing. So recapping my list really quick too. I have Joel Embiid at number 1. I have Nikola Jokic at number 2 and Giannis at number 3 with less than a chin first separating the 3 of them as well. So absolutely fun MVP race this year compared to years past.
Here's my one question. I think you'll probably have the same answer as I do. Out of those 3, is there a wrong answer? Like, do you feel like there's a wrong answer in any one of those 3?
There's not a wrong answer, but there's a least right answer. And I think Jokic is the least right answer. And I know I had him at number 2, so it's ironic how you put it that way. But I think part of it is, I'm thinking about it. He was the worst one defensively of the group as well, too. If we're going to use all the nerdy advanced stats to say how good he is offensively, we have to look at the ones defensively that say he allowed the most layups by anybody in the league.
Granted, most improved from his last year stats defensively. Like fantastic improvement from his defensive stats last year.
Which is more an indictment of how bad it was last year as well, too. But at the same time,
an MVP award. Just this is all I'm going to say.
We're not. We as we both said on that one, that was one we both could debate it a little bit as well. But I think he's the least right answer. And part of it is when it's such a tight race like this. Like we're talking about chin first separating it. He was the one that kind of plateaued off down the stretches while the other 2 ascended a little bit. So like he had such a big lead to start with. That's why it is so close down the stretch. But it's kind of like what they joke about in like the fight game. You could be winning the entire round and then someone gets a late surge. Like it could be a really close round, but you're winning. But then a late little flurry late in the round could steal, or like a late takedown or something like that. So when it's close, the little things like that matter. And so I'm going to say he's the least right. But at the same time, if he gets it, it's like, well, I can't really argue it too much. It's like, I preferred the other guys, but it's not blasphemy. Stop the count. It's rigged. There's not throwing a temper tantrum. I have more questions about it. But to answer your question, long story short, there's not a wrong answer. There's not even really a least right answer. That's just my opinion on that one as well.
I'm with you. I think the same thing. I don't think there's a wrong answer out of those 3. I mean, if you pull somebody out of that's not in that 3-man group, that's the wrong answer. But I think out of those 3 players, I think, I'm with you. I think there's a least right answer in Jokic, and then there's the other 2 who, okay, fair enough. I'm not going to take it away from you. I also think a big reason why I think the Jokic is a least right answer is because of last season as well. I think that was a mistake. I think that should have gone to Embiid, but you know what? Again, splitting hairs at this point in time. And how ridiculous is it? We're in 2023, the era of the 3-point ball, and we're talking about 2 centers and a power forward who, let's be honest, plays better in the. He's a center with a point guard handle. Like that's really it. Like. Actually, I might even say, honestly, he's just a point center at that point in time. It's really what he is.
He's a point center. Brooke Lopez is a stretch 4. That's how we're defining it from now. And I don't care if Brooke Lopez does the tip off, all that
Because
sort of thing.
Joel Embiid almost has the same handles as Giannis, and that's
exactly. So like it's kind of crazy. In the era of wings, we're talking about big men right now as well too. The era of wings and guards, and here we are emphasizing the big men as well. So it's definitely a lot to look forward there as well too. Real quickly, we'll just kind of round out defensive player of the year. There's a few answers. Who, if you had to pick a defensive player of the year, who does your vote go to?
Oh man, dude, I don't even know off the top of my head. Defensive player of the year is a weird one for me because there are a few that I could go with here.
I'll go with mine. I think it's a very, very close race. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. and Evan Mobley are both very tight in that race. And I know Draymond's getting some votes too, but I'm going to go with Jaren Jackson just because, especially with that issue that went with John Morant, where he kind of had to be the dude to step up. I know Dylan Brooks was the loudest of them all, but Jaren Jackson was on the court, the one that I think made the most difference, what he provided defensively, and even with Steven Adams in and out of the lineup a little bit too. So I know Steven Adams is the muscle, but Jaren Jackson is the versatile defender. So it's a close one. You told me Evan Mobley was going to win. I wouldn't argue either.
I think that's where I'm going to. I think I am going Evan Mobley. It kind of goes back to that early season Memphis Grizzlies statistician pumping up the stats, quotation marks, whether he did or did not. It does still kind of play in the back of your mind. So I think Evan Mobley, for me, gets Defensive Player of the Year. By the way, shout out Brooke Lopez. We joked about him being a stretch 4. Probably will finish in the top 3 of Defensive Player of the Year.
A stretch 4 that's got a little defense to his game as well. So there's definitely a lot to look forward to. A lot of good candidates for that one. But that'll do it for our NBA recap here in the main event. That is now going to take us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show, and that's Crunch Time, brought to you by our good friends over at Outlier. Check out outlier.bet/high-low-sports. Get yourself a free 7-day trial. It's best, smarter, not harder. Get all the odds, needs, trends, and everything you need to hopefully win some money that we have not been doing as much recently. So we need to jump back out on Outlier and see if we can get our money back up. But real quickly,
we did win money on.
Yeah, we did get a little bit. So Outlier did come in clutch there for us as well. But I'll just really, really quick with mine. We talked a little about Israel Adesanya. How can he make a comeback here? He bounces back with a knockout of the year nominee. If you have been on Twitter or any sort of social media, you have seen it in slow motion. Absolutely stonewalls his biggest nemesis. The reason we're highlighting it today is against the guy who's beat you 3 times, the guy who has knocked you out twice and left you stoned in the kickboxing ring once. The cojones to immediately jump back out on the horse and 5-6 months later be like, I want him again, and to immediately go fight him. Like, there's demons that creep into your mind all the time, especially when you lose at something. Like, there's that line between doing the same thing constantly and expecting different results is insanity. Well, he flirted with the line of insanity here, constantly jumping back on that horse and going out to fight him. Has a bit of a rough first round as well, too. Bounces back with a knockout of the year nominee. So the cojones, the mental resolve, tip of the cap to you, and you get a potential KO of the year nominee to go to it as well. And whoever he fights next, I look forward to it as well. Like, the sky's the limit now once you get that monkey off your back.
Yeah, no, that's it. Look, it was a wild fight, and that's by the way, in case anybody's curious, that's the game. That's the matchup we won our money on. Both of us won money off of. So shout out Izzy for that one as well. One of my favorite fighters, just for not because of the way he fights, but because of his fun anime loving intros and celebrations and things like that. I mean, we're talking about a guy who literally pulled a Pokeball out and rolled it on the floor towards his downed enemy.
Different guy. That was Michael Page who did that.
Was it? Oh, it was.
Yeah, they fight very similarly, so they get confused.
Fair.
Yeah,
I forget that he didn't pull out the Pokeball. Yeah, never mind.
He's
Michael
the one who comes
Page,
out. He has the Naruto and some of the other stuff like that.
Yeah, he also does the Super Saiyan things. Yeah. Is he still one of the top?
Fun fact: that when he rolled out the Pokeball, if I'm not mistaken, that was the same fight where he cracked a dude's skull. That wasn't Izzy. That was Michael Page. But like, there's a dead guy and you threw a Pokeball at him, so it was like, oh, okay, that's weird timing. But
better hurry up to the Pokemart at that point and get it healed.
Nurse Joy, Nurse Joy, you're gonna have to meet us halfway. We're not gonna make it.
Nurse Joy's working overtime on that one. So, anyways, getting away from that, and we're gonna get into a little more fun topic, I guess. My crunch time goes to MLB food fight. Of course, I would have to discuss food. There was recently a food fight during Philadelphia Phillies Dollar Dog Night. I can't make this up. Quite literally, an entire 3 sections of the ballpark down the sideline were throwing these foiled hot dogs up and down, left and right at each other. It started between 2 opposing fans, and then the rest of the fans got in on it. And as it is in the city of brotherly love, they love to throw things at everybody. It doesn't matter what team you're affiliated with. And they will just continue to throw it. But it begs a bigger question because there's a bigger issue abound with the food fights. Many teams are talking about extending beer sales past the 7th inning when they are required by the MLB to stop beer sales. Do you know why? The pitch clock has sped up the game so much that they are not able to sell more than a half of their previous sales amounts through the first 3 weeks of baseball season. So they are trying to find a way to recoup some of their sales. Now, MLB's response to this was, you make enough money from TV deals. Just maybe sell them for a lesser price and they'll buy more earlier on in the game. And so it begs the question, MLB food, overpriced? Should they be dropped or should they get the extra couple innings to sell beer?
Yes. I am all for both.
That's the most Cleveland-esque answer I've heard as I polled some of my colleagues at work today who are diehard Guardians fans also said the same thing. Yes, extend it, but also drop the price to like $7-8 a beer. And these guys would be walking away double, triple fisted here. They'd get this twice as many beers for twice the price, and you'd get all your sales back by the 7th inning. Or in the 8th inning if you send it that way. But yeah, that's a very interesting thing that led from a food fight, a literal food fight in an MLB stadium. So
yeah, you know what? I'd rather than throw food at each other than throw hands at each other as well too, or start to throw bats at each other. So you know what? I'll take
it's a city of brotherly love. Yeah. I mean, honestly, at that point in time, who knows what they were putting in hot dogs when they were throwing it. There might have been some brass knuckles being thrown with those hot dogs.
You know what? That is very possible. You know, one step at a time as well. But you know what? Those dollar dogs probably do more to your tum-tum if you eat too many of them, having them thrown at you as well.
No,
so,
they don't have those sweet Dale dogs here. There.
You never know, though. They might have a different ones that do a number on your tummy, too. There's a reason they're $1. And they put in some work for better and for worse. But that's going to do it here for the High Low Sports Podcast. We appreciate y'all joining us this Wednesday, or if you're checking us out on one of your favorite podcast apps later on in the week, we appreciate you spending some time hanging out with us to talk a little bit of sports and food. We will see you guys again next week, and definitely keep an eye out for our NFL draft stuff coming up in the oncoming weeks as well, too. We will see you guys next week.